Sorry to interrupt the member. Call Sue Kedgley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, the leaky homes saga is one of the worst man-made, I use the word man-advisedly, disasters in the history of New Zealand, which affects, some are estimating, as many as 80,000 households, and could cost anywhere between $11 and $23 billion to fix. And it is such a fiasco that I thought I would go back to the Hansard records and discover how the fiasco came about. And I have to say that Maurice Williamson is correct. It was the Labour government who developed the Building Act, which created this fiasco, and it was the national government under Mr Bolger who took it over at the third reading, and it was passed unanimously with every members of this House glowing with huge satisfaction about what a wonderful piece of legislation the 1991 Building Act was and what it was going to usher in. Because what they all said is, we are going to deregulate the industry, we're going to wipe out all of the previous regulations and controls in the industry, and we're going to do this because we're going to save money, we're going to reduce costs, and we're going to have a boost to the building industry. So what they did, they loosened the council's inspection procedures to save money and please the building industry. They tried to increase competition in the sector by allowing private sector building certifiers to compete with local council inspectors for work. They lowered the standards, allowed the use of untreated timber, monolithic cladding. Then they allowed builders and developers to go in or to enter and exit the building industry with no liability, no skills and or costs. They literally, developers and builders, they could build a house, then walk away with it without any liability, hide under the protection of a limited liability, or simply disappear or head off to Australia, as so many thousands have done so. They removed basic levels of skill and training. Well, what does it matter? Anyone can build a home. All that you needed was to ensure that the building complied with minimal standards in the building code. And so it is interesting to look back and reflect on the debate, and only just 20 years ago in this House, and read, it might be worthwhile in committee stages, reading some of the speeches by Labour and National about what a great idea this was, and they crowed that by leaving it to the invisible hand of the market, deregulating the industry, they were going to reduce building costs and have this wonderful new era that was going to be ushered in. And here we are 20 years later. Instead of saving money and reducing costs, we've got an $11 billion, could be $23 billion bill. We have, as the 2002 HUN report said, a systematic breakdown across the entire building industry. We've affected the lives of thousands, arguably hundreds of thousands of New Zealanders, ended up with somewhere between 24,000 and possibly even 80,000 newly built homes that are leaky, that are defective, that are unlivable. Families all over New Zealand living in damp, mouldy, unhealthy homes with stacky botrytis, more of that later. People who are devastated and financially ruined, all because National, supported by Labour, deregulated the building industry and left it to the market. So let us hope that the government will learn from this fiasco, but no, it's running around trying to deregulate in a whole lot of other sectors and no doubt setting up similar fiascos. Now, experts believe that as many as 89,000 homes built between 92 and 2005 will leak. Some are saying that 80 or even 100% of houses and apartments and multi-dwelling homes with monolithic cladding and untreated timber will fail irrespective of their design. John Gray, Homeowners and Buyers Association President, he fears that every single house built from untreated timber will leak at some time in its life, and he says, contrary to official assurances, there are still houses that have been built after the reforms to the building code in 2005 that leaked like a sieve, despite the fact that they've now using treated timber and you're having to leave gaps between the walls and the timber frames. So, and he said you've still got builders out there who aren't builders, developers who don't give a damn, and owners who are trying to cut costs and build as cheaply as they can. So actually it is a saga of greed as well as of deregulation. They warn that we haven't even begun to estimate the true scope of the problem. Many people still don't realise they have a leaky home, or are in denial about it, or can't afford to fix it, or have been fixed badly and will have to be repaired again. And as many others have said, there are so many people who will not be able to pay the 50% of the cost of repairing the home. And it was also pointed out that we're only talking here in the legislation about houses and multi-dwelling units. And there are, the Weathertightness report pointed out, probably an equal number of motels, of schools, of retirement homes, of hospitals that are leaking like sieves. So the fiasco that has been created 20 years ago with the unanimous support of Labour and National in this House continues to ricochet through our nation. Many are concerned that they are not going to be eligible. They'll miss out on this package because their houses were built in the 90s, outside of the time frames. And we believe, the government is saying, oh, well, it's sorry about the 10-year limit. We acknowledge that people will be upset, but the magnitude of the money is so huge. But we believe it is quite simply unjust that a financial assistance package won't be available to people because of an arbitrary time frame. We believe the package should be open to anyone who has a leaky home, regardless of when it was built. It also is galling, of course, to find that owners whose house was signed off by a private building certifier won't be eligible for the 25% council contribution. That is galling. And we know that we had many heartbreaking submissions from who said, look, I remember one, Rob Craigie, and one of them who said, we're in our late 60s, we've got $160,000 mortgage on the damp house they own, we cannot sell it, we cannot possibly afford to pay 50% of a $300,000 bill, which is what most of them are looking at, on top of our mortgage. And so we just have to stay here working and trying to keep paying our mortgage until we die. The problem with multi-unit legal claims has already been referred to. Many of these are stalled. Owners can't afford to pay their fees. They can't get enough of the body corporate to sign in. And then we have the whole business of the health effects, which no one has referred to, the moulds and fungi from these damp, leaky homes, which produce these tiny spores, which when they're inhaled, they cause stachybotrys. They produce these toxins, mycotoxins, adverse effects such as respiratory problems, eye and skin irritation, flu-like syndromes, particularly bad for people with asthma, bronchitis and other breathing disorders. So, from a health perspective, we should be doing everything that we can to fix these homes, because we are going to be paying another, yet again, through our health bill because of people who have incredible health problems as a result of living in these damp, leaky, unhealthy, insanitary homes. So I think our main message is at least this is trying to say that the money should be spent not on legal fees but on actually fixing the homes, and for that reason, and that reason alone, we are going to support this bill. But we do believe that anyone with a leaky home should be eligible for this package. There shouldn't be arbitrary time frames, and we will hope that the bill can be amended in that respect. Thank you very much.
Mr. Speaker.